所以我们今天呢，特别请到来自德国的Sven Teske 先生以及我们国内的学者一起来做这个讨论。那在这个讨论开始之前呢，我要先介绍请 Sven Teske 先生先给我们大概30-40分钟关于他个人在这些年关于绿能的经验所能够带给我们的启示。那 Sven Teske 先生呢，他是国际绿色和平再生能源专案的总监他从2008年到2011年之间，曾经担任联合国政府之间气候变迁专门委员会的再生能源的报告的主要作者那这份报告呢，能源革命的报告呢，它开始2005年。那这份报告其实是很重要的因为它提供了再生能源的蓝图。它说明了说，如何在电力需求持续成长的情况之下，透过再生能源逐步淘汰核能跟石化等肮脏能源，达到在2050年之前全球的二氧化碳排放量减半的目的。那这一份报告一开始呢，是从2005年是从以欧洲为它的情境到了2007年之后拓展到全世界。那到了今年2012年已经出版到第4个版本那现在被翻译成超过20多种语言，有40多个国家采纳了这份报告里面作为它的基准那 Sven 先生在能源这个部分，他已经有20多年的经验而且他参加很多世界各国的能源会议，那他的意见跟建议也受到世界上很多相关单位跟主事者的采用。我们今天很高兴很荣幸能够大老远的把 Sven 先生从德国请来那我现在就把我的麦克风交给 Sven Teske 先生。
Thank you very much for coming. First, I have to apologize that I'm not that formal. I'm always a very fast traveler, and I was faster than my suitcase, which is still somewhere between Amsterdam and here. So this is sort of not planned, but I will dive straight into my presentation. I would like to give you a brief overview about what the status is, what the resources for Taiwan are, and what the energy revolution concept is all about. But before I go into the statistics, I would like to clarify two things. One, you see and you hear very often about energy forecasts, about energy scenarios, and especially the reference case from the International Energy Agency has always been presented as a forecast. So this will happen. But this is actually not the case. The scenario cannot forecast what will happen. It will only show what happens if specific measures will be taken or not taken. So a reference case, a forecasting, is basically if we take the situation today with no change, this will appear in 20, 30 or 40 years. What Greenpeace does is we do backcasting. That means we identify a target, what we want to achieve in the future, and then we work our way backwards. What do we actually have to do when? So when you see scenarios, no matter if it's the Greenpeace scenario or another scenario, it is a scenario which shows what if, not a real sort of forecast what will happen. We don't have a crystal ball. But what we see is we see that there are trends. And you see here, this is 100%, and then this is our projection, what or how the costs for renewable energy will go down. You see that those costs here, this is biomass will not come down very significantly because it's already a relatively old technology. While solar, for example, in ocean has still some way to go, so it can be reduced. So overall, we see that from a variety of different places, like this is, for example, ocean energy, this is some form of concentrated solar power, it will all come down to a level of around 10 cents in the next 10 to 15 years. And in fact, our projection has been actually too conservative because we have seen that solar and wind reduce the prices because of very strong competition actually faster. So basically, the overall costs for different renewable energies come down, where conventional energy goes up due to the fact that it's a major technology and the fuel prices potentially go up in terms of fossil fuels. In our scenarios, we always use projections from the International Energy Agency about the fuel price developments. Because the good news is you can rely on those fuel price projections. You can actually rely on that they're wrong. And therefore, we don't do our own. We just quote somebody else. To do a real forecast in oil, gas and coal prices is extremely difficult. It has proven to be very wrong in the past, but we basically just take a standard from the International Energy Agency. What we also do in our analysis is we have an analysis about the global resources. This is, for example, the historical oil production since 1950. We are basically here. If we stop exploring new oil and the normal production decline takes place, then the yellow line shows you where we go. That means we have a very steep reduction of oil production. Okay, we can explore more oil resources like deep sea oil, Arctic oil, conventional oil. There is no lack of oil, but it will be more and more expensive and more environmental damaging. And at the end of the day, we have to reduce anyway, because we eventually run out of oil and out of the atmosphere, because we can't afford to pollute our atmosphere any further. Therefore, our concept is to actually start now phasing out oil, because we know even with a very ambitious plan, this will take more than a generation, like 30 to 40 years. While we know that in the electricity sector and the heating and cooling sector, the switch to renewables is relatively easy in terms of technology. Transport is a very different thing, because electric vehicles are not there. We have some forms of transport like large ships or planes where we simply can't use electricity. So it is a challenge to phase out oil entirely. But we need to start now in order to achieve that for the next generation. We also did an analysis about the historical coal production, and this is where we have to do what we have to do in order to avoid dangerous climate change. And we see that even the existing coal mines are more than enough to supply the world. So unfortunately, we don't have that limit, sort of this artificial limit here. We have, unfortunately, far too much coal. And even if we stop expanding new mines, there's too much coal for the climate. This is a little bit of self-promotion because we do sort of projections for renewable energy expansion since the early or mid-90s. And I showed here on this slide, in 1999 we have done a projection of what the wind market worldwide would look like. And this is the curve we projected until 2010. And this black curve above it, it's actually the real market, what really happened. So I think we were quite well. And in our projections, also solar, we were actually too conservative. So what we are showing here is not science fiction, it's actually already happening. This is the global power plant market in the last 50 years, since 1970. So basically, this is the annual additional market. So here, for example, this amount of new hydropower plants have been installed, new gas, new oil, new coal, new nuclear. You see, nuclear had a sort of a peak in the mid-90s, in the mid-80s, and after Chernobyl happened in '85, the market went down significantly for nuclear and never really came back. You also see that from 2000 onwards, the overall the overall power plant market went up. And the reason for that is that traditional, also the industrial countries like Europe, the European countries, Australia, and North America, they all built their power plant and electricity system in the 70s and 80s. And the power plants are on age now, so they have to be replaced. While developing countries such as China, South Africa, Brazil, India are actually gearing up and actually establish a new electricity market. So therefore we see that the electricity market, or the power plant market, is a very, very crucial one for the next generation, because what power plants will be built today will basically dictate the electricity and energy mix for the next generation. So what we have right now in place worldwide in terms of power plants has been built in the 70s and 80s, so basically from our parents. And so that we see that we have a responsibility for the next generation. So if you have a look here and you just take a focus, take a look on the black bars, which are additional new coal, and I will subtract China now. And you see, coal is not gone, but significantly lower. So you see that almost 90%, or 88% of new built coal in the last 7 years has been built only in China. While the rest of the world goes, especially for gas, this is biomass, this is the blue one is hydro, light blue is wind, and yellow is solar. So you see since 2000, renewables exploding. They're really going up. So the majority of new built power plants this last year in 2012 was actually from renewables, followed by gas and coal. Nuclear is entirely irrelevant in the global market. Hardly anybody builds that because it's too expensive. This is just to show you in the European market, see renewables and gas, and you see also that steep curve shows you that Europe actually just replaces the existing power plant fleet entirely. If we take a look on the capacity sort of installations and retirements, we see that is solar, this is wind, and this is gas. So 10,000 megawatts of new gas has been built in Europe, and 6,000 or 5,500 has been retired. On nuclear, it's 1,200 less, and 22, which is basically just upgrades of existing power plants. So nuclear is pretty much dead in Europe. There are 3 power plant projects, or 3.5, 2 in France. They're both on hold. One in Finland, which has significant problems. After 5 years of construction, they are 5 years behind schedule and about 100% over budget. And there is also a new plan which came into the newspapers a few weeks ago, which is in the UK. The UK actually introduced a feed-in tariff for nuclear. And they get 19 cents per kilowatt hour for the next 35 years, which means solar in the UK, not a sunny country, can actually produce for half the cost. So nuclear is by far the most expensive technology we know right now in the engineering community about generating electricity. There's nothing more expensive than nuclear on the market. This is the global market of the last 5 years. We have 9% solar. We have less than almost 1% concentrated solar power, so it's very small. We have 20% wind, 12% hydro, around almost 20% gas, 38% coal, mainly in China, and 1% nuclear. So this is basically the reality on the global power plant market. In terms of the renewable energy market, this has been released just 2 weeks ago. The investment last year was 244 billion. You might see that in 2011 the investment was higher, about 11%. But in fact, the overall new capacity, the new market, was actually 10% higher. The reason why the investment was lower is that solar and wind significantly reduced price due to very strong competition. So who's the number one player? For new additional capacities, China. Hydropower, China. Solar is Germany. Wind is the US, world leader. Solar water heating, China again. Biodiesel, US. And ethanol production, also the US. If you look at those top 5 lists, you see only Germany, the US, and China mainly. In some places you see Japan. Unfortunately, you don't see Taiwan, even though the potential would be there. In terms of the very large electronic industry here, it could be a major player, but it's not. And in terms of the overall market, this is the development of solar in the last years. This is wind, and this is concentrated solar power. So you see it's all going straight up. And the reason why this is going straight up, mainly because they are cost competitive. In the US, for example, wind power is cheaper than gas power plants, the second cheapest. In Germany, not a very sun-blessed country, for a normal household, it is actually cheaper to generate the electricity with own solar panels than buying it from the utility. So this is one of the reasons, or the main reason, why those technologies took off. Also, the reason is security of supply, because those technologies don't need fuel. That means you're independent from fossil fuel market prices. When you build a wind farm, you know that when you build it and construct it for, let's say, 7 cents per kilowatt hour, this year, you know that in 2033, in 20 years' time, you will still produce for 7 cents, because you know what your operation and maintenance costs are. They're very stable. While ask a coal or gas power plant operator how much they will charge in 20 years. Nobody knows, because nobody knows the fuel prices. In terms of jobs, and this is another reason why also my home country is going into renewables. My home country is a little bit like Taiwan, a little bit bigger, but has the same problem. There is no resource. The only resource we have in Germany is ideas, technology. And therefore, we try to develop technology and sell technology, like cars. Like in Germany, the car industry has about 800,000 to 1 million employees. The renewable industry has 400,000 employees. So you see, renewable industry in my country is very important. Now I grew up on the North Sea coast, and in my hometown, you have 2 options to get a job. One is VW, and the other one is the wind industry. So it is a very important industry. And you see also that in China, it's a huge industry. Altogether, there are more than 250,000 people working in the wind industry alone. Same amount is working all over the EU. So it is a very important market and a very important employer. So those are the 2 main arguments for main countries to go into renewables, or 3. Stable price, predictable, because no fuel. It is cost competitive, it's security of supply, and it provides jobs. Our projection shows that we can actually go up from 6-7 million. It ranges, it varies very, very much from statistics to statistics. So it's sort of like between 5 and 7.5 million jobs now, and this could double to 13, or in 2020 will go down slightly, in 2030 again to 12 million jobs. The reason why it slightly goes down is because you have more and more cost competitive production, and therefore it is less labor intensive in the future, and that's basically one reason why also costs decline. In terms of this is also from our global scenario. If we see, this is the average additional investment volume, and this is the fuel cost savings with the projections that I've showed you. So it pays off twice. So what the installation of renewables actually pays off after 10-15 years, and it will then lead to a fossil fuel independent market energy price. So I always hear that when I'm abroad, yeah, Germany, that works, but our country is different. In terms of the resource, we have maps like this one, and you see that this is Germany there. This is Denmark, and Germany is sort of underneath here. And here you see the sunshine. And the sort of yellow has 30 to 50% more sunshine than blue. So you see that Taiwan has about 30 to 50% more sunshine than my home country. And Germany has the biggest solar market. Germany has the same solar regime like Alaska. So not very sunny. In terms of wind, this is the global wind map. Again, Germany, you see where about 20,000 megawatts, sorry, 30,000 megawatts of wind are installed, almost the amount of capacity Taiwan needs. And Taiwan has, at least on the west coast, northwest coast, and the south, very good wind resources as well, equal to Germany or even a bit better. It looks on this map that the east coast is not so good, but this is not a very detailed map, so for real resource planning you of course need a far more detailed map for Taiwan. In terms of the energy intensity, we see that there is quite a huge potential for Taiwan to reduce. This is the energy intensity. Energy intensity is actually a very good measurement. It shows how many energy units per dollar GDP are needed. And you see that Taiwan needs almost more than twice as much than Germany. And Germany is a very high industrialized country as well. So there is some room for improvement in terms of the energy efficiency. Therefore, we think that with efficiency measures in the industry, the increasing demand can be reduced, so it could be stabilized somehow. Because we also see that the consumer, sort of the normal households and the service unit is on the same level like Europeans. So it's not significantly higher, but the industry is the main factor. In terms of electricity intensity, so that's just electricity, again, Taiwan has a pretty bad ranking actually. If you compare to Japan, I would say you probably compare yourself more to Japan or Korea than to Germany, but you see even Korea is a bit lower, but Japan is significantly lower. And Japan is as well as a very industrialized country. So there are possibilities to reduce that. In terms of quickly, I just wanted to show this as a mix from our global scenario. We have breakdowns by region, by country. But you see the main message is here, three colors. This is gas, this is nuclear, and this is coal. Three colors dominate the entire electricity demand, supply, which is very insecure. Imagine if one thing happens, if coal or gas price goes up, it has a huge impact on the economy. While our scenario has a 7 technology, a wide range of different technologies, which basically shares the risk across many technologies, and therefore it is far more secure. We see that 2050, 94% of the global electricity could be renewable. Also in terms of cost, again, here we see that the specific generation cost, they are almost from the beginning on the same level, and then this advantage of fossil fuel savings, fuel cost savings appear and will make it very cost competitive. In terms of CO2, this is almost a byproduct. In our case, we can reduce more than 80% CO2 by 2050. What is the most difficult? First, where are those emissions? Those are emissions in 2050. With our scenario, we can actually achieve some energy equity. So the emissions per person worldwide are equal in terms of CO2 per person. The most difficult sector for us to reduce is the transport sector, because planes or large ships cannot be just powered by biofuels, because there are also limitations on biofuels. But electricity is currently not possible. So there's a need for new technologies. And also interesting enough is there seems to be a renaissance of wind-driven ships again. So the second generation sails on container ships. My hometown Hamburg has a lot of shipyards, and there are some first ships which use wind sail and new second generation sails again in order to reduce fuel costs. So there's room for a lot of innovations. But the power sector will be turned on its head because there is a very different business model required, and I explain why. If you have the situation like in my home country where you have a lot of solar and wind already, and you accept baseload power plants, then you have sometimes a lot of production, and that means you have too much production, and you either have to store it, you have to transfer it to other regions via cable, or you simply shut down the electricity generation, like wind or solar. This is not the real most economic way of doing that, and therefore our concept, or what happens right now in many countries, like in Denmark, Germany, and Spain, but also in parts of China and the US, this happens. So you actually have a priority access to the grid and prior dispatching, which means those all wind and solar equipment can actually generate electricity and put it into the grid. But then you cut into the baseload, which means you don't need baseload power plants anymore. You have a basic demand, but not a baseload supply, because the future's electricity supply looks different. It looks like that. We take all the wind, we take all the solar, and then we fill up the demand curve with biomass, with hydro, with gas in the meantime. So basically we have a very different system, which means that coal and nuclear power plants cannot operate 8,000 hours a year, so all the time, which means they are not economic anymore. And this is exactly the disagreement and the argue in my home country, but in other countries as well, because utilities realize that their business case is eroding. In Germany, 1.4 million households have their own solar equipment. So that means they don't really need a lot of electricity from the utility. So the entire business case for traditional utilities are turned around. And this is the main reason why we have a huge fight right now between conventional power, nuclear and coal, and renewables. Because they simply don't fit together. It's like combining analog and digital communication equipment. It doesn't work. So in the history, we have the power plant engineering companies together with utilities do project development, they manufacture the equipment, and they install it. The utility usually owns and operates the power plant, also usually has shares in the fuel supply, like coal and gas, and distribute and sell the electricity. In the future, all those steps are done by other players as well. If you have a liberalized market, you have no grid anymore in the private hand. It's open for everyone. You don't need fuel supply really, because the majority of renewables don't need fuel. And you have a lot of companies who do project development, manufacturing and installation. While in the traditional way, you build, let's say, every 10 years, like 3 or 4 power plants. In the decentralized energy revolution concept, you build 1,000 or 2,000 power plants. So the business case for building power plants, small power plants, is the main business case for the utility. So in the future, the power plant comes to the customer, not the electricity, and the service. And this is a very, very different way of operating your business. It is also that utilities are used to have one area where they have their power plants. In a decentralized system, they have 1,000 power plants distributed across the whole city or the whole region, which requires, again, a very different way of operating that. And it also requires a very different software. You basically need to have prognosis for generation data. So you can do, and what you need to do, and this happens in many countries already, you do a forecast. How much wind do we have tomorrow in this province? And how much of wind turbines do I have? So I calculate in every 15 minutes how much will I get here, here, and here. You also do forecast solar. Solar is easy to forecast because the sunrise and sunset doesn't come as a surprise. It's clear. You know when you don't have solar, which is 50% of the knowledge, and then you have the knowledge when do I have a chance, and then you know your seasons, about cloud covers and stuff, so you can actually forecast them relatively good. And you need other mechanisms and some storage, real-time data. You need the exact location of the power plant. You need operation and maintenance function. This is all software development. When you hear, and this is sort of a buzzword, smart grids. I actually don't really like the word because grids right now are not stupid. They are already relatively complicated technologies. But what you need to do now is you have to add more information technology. So that means more software. You basically merge the internet with the electricity net. And this is a new business. It will create a lot of new jobs. Jobs you usually don't have. In Germany, for example, there are companies who specialize on prognosis for solar. So if they give a prognosis to the utility, in this region you will have X amount of megawatts tomorrow at 12:15. If they're plus minus 5% in the range, what they forecast, they get money. If they're plus minus 10%, they get less money, and if they're more than 10% wrong, they don't get anything. So they have really interest in making an exact forecast. Right now, the forecast average mistake in Germany is between 2 and 5%. So we know exactly 2 days ahead how much wind power we actually will have. And this is predictable. Also, the consumer plays an active role. And what also is needed is data security and all the rest of it. All those things are actually very good chances also for the Taiwanese industry, because the electronic industry is a very strong player. And the utility of the future is basically a .com company with some electricity sort of connected to it. So a lot of software development. And with this, I want to close. Thank you very much.